DA's report, however, concluded that while Lacy was driving at a high rate of speed, when he passed 4 vehicles, including an 18-wheeler in a no passing zone, he was back in his correct lane well before the crash occurred. Had it been a stretch of roadway where cars were permitted to pass each other, the prosecutor's report said the point at which Lacy returned to his lane would have been 3 times the required distance, and he would not have been responsible for any crash. The prosecutor's report also stated the evidence shows the driver of the Kia Cadenza was following too closely behind the gold truck and swerved into the southbound lanes to avoid hitting the truck, not to avoid Lacy's Charger. Oh man, so hey dog, shout out to the homie Denny by Nature. He just tagged me in this right here, and that is some more news, some more follow-up news on the Kyren Lacy situation. I'm about to read this for the first time with y'all, and I did think I seen Ryan Clark comment on this. Let me see. So yeah, Ryan Clark also shared this, saying it's ever evolving, pay attention. And this comes after he released an apology in reaction to what he said on Monday night when he was defending Kyren Lacy. And then after that point, more footage came out from the Louisiana police when they were saying they were trying to save their face and show why Kyren was charged with negligent homicide. All right, but Ryan Clark apologized. I may go ahead and put that in towards the end if you guys did miss that, because I don't think I ever released when I did react to his apology. But all right, so we do have this article. I want to go over this with y'all and see exactly what's in here. So take your time with me. Let's go ahead and dive in to see what they're saying. All right, so it says prosecutors report disputed police claims about fatal crash that led to Kyren's arrest. Okay, so this is from the district attorney. The district attorney's office that investigated a December 2024 fatal crash that led to the arrest of Kyren Lacy found that the Louisiana State Police probe into the accident had several inconsistencies and disputed the police's characterization of the NFL hopeful's actions. An April 11, 2025 review by an investigator in the office of Lafourche Parish District Attorney Christine Russell stated, the report provided to this office by the Louisiana State Police has several inconsistencies which were used to base their opinion and conclusion of the crash. So ABC News obtained the district attorney's report on Thursday. So it says we cannot comment on the district attorney's investigation as we were not part of that process. A spokesperson for the Louisiana State Police told ABC News on Thursday, Louisiana State Police stands by the findings of its crash investigation, which relied on troopers' specialized training, eyewitness accounts, video evidence, and physical evidence to determine contributing factors. Those findings were forwarded to the Lafourche Parish District Attorney's Office. So State Police said that while Lacy's charges did not impact any of the vehicles, all evidence collected supports the conclusion that Lacy's reckless operation of the green Charger and oncoming traffic triggered the chain of events involving the other drivers, ultimately resulting in the fatal crash. All right, so this is the important part right here. Y'all know all the other shit we just talked about. So it says the DA's report, however, concluded that while Lacy was driving at a high rate of speed, when he passed 4 vehicles, including an 18-wheeler in a no passing zone, he was back in his correct lane well before the crash occurred. Had it been a stretch of roadway where cars were permitted to pass each other, the prosecutor's report said the point at which Lacy returned to his lane would have been 3 times the required distance, and he would not have been responsible for any crash. The prosecutor's report also stated the evidence shows the driver of the Kia Cadenza was following too closely behind the gold truck and swerved into the southbound lanes to avoid hitting the truck, not to avoid Lacy's Charger. ABC News reached out to the DA's office for further comment but has not heard back. In a January 10th, 2025 statement around the time of Lacy's arrest, police also accused Lacy of fleeing the scene and failing to render aid when he was arrested on charges of negligent homicide and reckless operation of a vehicle. Police also sought charges of felony hit and run against him. When he was arrested on charges of negligent homicide and reckless operation of a vehicle, police also sought charges of felony hit and run. But is this saying the same shit? All right, but according to the DA's report, the evidence submitted in the crash report does not support that Kyren Lacy should have known that his actions were the cause of the crash. So the DA's findings appear to bolster claims made by Lacy's attorney, Matthew Ory, in an interview with Oma station HTV10 last week. So Kyren Lacy had no idea he caused this accident because he didn't think he caused the accident. He didn't cause the accident, Ory said. That's his attorney. So ABC News reached out to Ory, but request for comment were not returned. So this is why I said when I seen the body cam shit and everything with the witnesses that what they were saying on scene, I'm like, okay, I see why he was charged, but that shit was above my pay grade. All right. So with the DA, knowing the law, knowing everything in there, the DA, the prosecutors are saying he is not responsible based on everything he's saying and the law and all these things. It wasn't enough evidence for him. So more than likely he was going to get off. He was going to get off. That's fucking sad. That's fucking sad, bro. Damn. Damn. That shit just really sinking in with me right now. That's crazy. Man. Rest in peace to Kyren Lacy, dog. Like I told y'all, Ryan Clark, like in the same reaction that I had, came out to apologize. And let me show y'all, you guys see the coverage that I never put out as far as that reaction to that. But we're gonna just go give you guys a quick little rundown of what led to this point. Ryan Clark was very, very forthcoming with this support for Kyren Lacy. All right, so he was on Monday Night Football or on ESPN after the Monday Night Football game and spoke about the situation and said that Kyren was innocent. Y'all know we talked about it. We played it. I'll catch you guys up with what was said.
Guys, Kyren Lacy was supposed to be in the NFL. Kyren Lacy was accused of something and being investigated for something that he didn't do, and he died having to live with the guilt and the consequences of a guilty man knowing he was innocent. It recently was discovered that he was 72 yards away from the crash, that police and state policemen tried to coerce and doctor and use ways to manipulate statements that put this young man behind bars. They changed his joy, they changed his life, and eventually he took his own life. This was supposed to be a career, but at least he was supposed to be here. At some point throughout his career, I would expect to have said his name. So I'm going to say his name tonight.
Amen.
Kyren Lacy was innocent. Kyren Lacy should be here with us. Nothing will ever repair or replace the pain that their parents, that his parents have to feel and his loved ones have to feel. But we could say his name. There were so many stations that ran the fact that he was being investigated. So I wanted to make sure here with Scott, we could say that he was an innocent man and at least know that he has that as he rests.
You and I talked about this earlier tonight, and I'll just share with them what I share with you. I can't recall ever seeing something that made me react viscerally to the point that I felt like my hands were trembling to think that there's video that shows that this is not at all what happened. And that young man took his life. And so I will not say any more. It's your thoughts here. I just wanted to echo.
Thank you very much.
No, and my apologies for forgetting that because this is a more important thing than what we're talking about tonight. Ryan Clark, I appreciate you always.
All right, shout out to Scott Van Pelt for understanding. But after more information came out, Ryan Clark then came to apologize because he said he didn't have all the information. So let's see what he had to say right here.
She's not in the room with us. All right, great start, everyone. But before we take a break, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan Clark.
Yeah, so I've never really had much trouble expressing anything. This has been more difficult because I know that people are hurting, right? 2 lives have been lost. Herman Hall, a man who spent his life in service of other, and Kyren Lacy. He's just a young man who I wish I could tell how much he had to live for. My heart absolutely breaks for both of them, their families, and their loved ones. On Monday night's Sports Center, I addressed the horrific car crash that took Mr. Hall's life, and also the subsequent tragic events that led to the death of Kyren Lacy. In full transparency, y'all, I knew Kyren Lacy personally, but nothing matters to me more than the truth. I always strive to do my best to mix authenticity with the most complete and up-to-date information available. I failed to do that on Monday night based on the subsequent evidence that has been released by the Louisiana State Police Department. I set the highest.
She's not in the room with us. All right, great.
Of fairness and most importantly, righteousness in my work. I didn't meet that standard. But since I've spoken to Kyren's representation at length, and I've also reached out to a representative at the state police office just to have a conversation. They informed me this morning that because it's ongoing litigation, they actually can't divulge anything else. It's always important to me that I gather all factual and important information to provide the complete story. That's a responsibility that I do not take lightly. And when discussed in real time on Monday evening, I failed to do so. And for that, I apologize.
All right, now, I ain't gonna lie, man, this was a tough one. I wanted to know why he was charged. And when you see the circumstances and see how the witnesses on the scene was acting, then you understand why he was charged. Because how the evidence was presented this past weekend or last week when I first seen the evidence that was presented by his lawyer, it seemed for sure that he was framed. But when you look at the entire picture, then you can understand based on the dynamics of how the road was, what they're claiming that was happened. I could see why they needed it to go to a grand jury, and the grand jury was going to have to make the decision on whether or not they were going to have to need a trial for this. Now, the grand jury may consist of people like you that may say he's innocent, and that's perfectly fine. But the police job is to grab and gather information to give to the DA. The DA decides that they want to charge him based on the information. It goes to the grand jury, and then they go from that point. My main issue was and is still to this point, I did not like how the police officer was manipulating the driver in the gold truck to make sure that he had the information that he wanted in the report in a certain type of way, saying make sure you put that the green Charger was coming towards you, and that forced you to veer off the road. I didn't like that. Let that witness put his statement in his own words, in his own way, with how he was, recalling the situation based on his own recollection. Don't try to lead the witness. That's my issue right there, and that is a problem. And I think that is what the lawyer for Kyren was going to expose and lean on to fight for his innocence. All right, man. So here we go. All that too, we have the DA saying once again, let me read what the DA said. The evidence submitted in the crash report does not support that Kyren Lacy should have known that his actions were the cause of the crash. While Lacy was driving at a high rate of speed when he passed 4 vehicles, including the 18-wheeler in the no passing zone, he was back in his correct lane well before the crash occurred. And had it been a stretch or a roadway where cars were permitted to pass each other, the prosecutor's report said that the point at which Lacy returned to his lane would have been 3 times the required distance, and he would not have been responsible for any crash. And the prosecutor's report also stated that the evidence shows the driver of the Kia Cadenza was following too closely behind the gold truck and swerved into the southbound lanes to avoid hitting the truck and not to avoid Lacy's Charger. That's that right there, man. Rest in peace to Kyren Lacy. Rest in peace to the man, Mr. Hall. This some sad shit, bro. Y'all let me know what you got to say in the comment section below. I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here, though. This is another update with Stace. Y'all.